So you are thinking about moving to Greensboro, North Carolina. Well, in this video, we are going to talk about the pros and cons of the historically important city of Greensboro, North Carolina. If this is your first time on this channel and you want to know more about living in the Carolinas, and specifically Greensboro, North Carolina, then subscribe to the channel and tap on that bell icon right below so you can be the first to know about the current market in the Carolinas and in particularly Greensboro, North Carolina. My name is Sir Ashley and I am a realtor and investor right here in the Carolinas, and my team, we get texts, emails, calls from people just like you who are looking to move to the Carolinas or within the Carolinas. And I must say, I absolutely love helping people, and my team absolutely loves helping people as well. So we get a joy from helping people buy, sell, and invest in real estate right here in the Carolinas. So don't hesitate. If you have any questions, give us a call, shoot us a text, or an email. Our information is below, and it might be somewhere on the screen. Now, let's jump into why you came here. The pros and cons of Greensboro, North Carolina. Let's go. Now, I'm going to be a little unorthodox and talk about the cons first, or what one may perceive as drawbacks to Greensboro, North Carolina. So let's jump into those right now. The first potential drawback or con, if you're thinking about moving to Greensboro, North Carolina, that you must consider is the limited public transportation. If you're coming to the area and do not have reliable access to a vehicle, and you're used to riding public transportation in other larger cities, this will be a huge shock to you because the Greensboro public transportation is severely limited. If you're going to live in Greensboro or the Triad area, you're going to need reliable transportation. If you're going to rely solely on buses for public transportation, it's going to be a very arduous, difficult task to get around. And yes, there's Uber and Lyft, but that can get very costly very quickly. So the lack of public transportation, in my opinion, is a huge drawback for Greensboro if you do not have a reliable vehicle. The next con or drawback for Greensboro, North Carolina is its relatively high crime rate compared to the size of the city. Now, yes, Greensboro crime rate is above the national average for similarly sized cities, and this is obviously a concern for some of the residents and people thinking about moving into the area. But like any other city, I have to caution you, you don't paint cities and areas with a wide brush. You have to look at specific areas. According to the FBI, back in 2019, the last time this data was reported, there was 9,737 crimes reported in Greensboro, North Carolina, with about 562 of those being violent crimes. Now, as I said, you should not look at a city or an area and paint it with the wide brush and just say, you know what, I'm not going there because of the crime, because you have to get specific. Like any other city where I'm sure you're coming from, or any other area that you're coming from, you have certain areas that have less crime or almost no crime. And then you have other areas that are high crime areas, or crime happens more frequently. And you also have to look at the time of year and the type of crimes that are taking place. Now, property crimes, yes, they shoot up in the summer and during spring break because you have a lot of idle time for kids and teenagers, so they may get mischievous and break into things. Now, I'm not condoning that, but I've seen that little measures of deterrence can go a long way in keeping your area and your property safe. Simply locking your doors, your house door, and car doors can go a very long way. But also keep in mind that this data is from 2019. Crime fluctuates depending on what's going on in the world and in society. So please do your due diligence when it comes to this. And when looking at crime for a city, do a deeper dive. Look at the specific zip code, the area, the subdivision, and see exactly what's going on in that area. Now, another drawback or negative for Greensboro, North Carolina, and this one was actually told to me because I didn't think this was a negative or a drawback, but the limited job opportunities is something that I hear often. While Greensboro has a strong economy with a number of major employers, that's why I didn't think it was such an issue. There may not be as many job opportunities if you're coming from larger cities. This is a huge concern from people that are migrating to the area. So limited job opportunities, depending on your field, may be a cause for concern. Now, the next and final con or drawback for Greensboro, North Carolina is its limited options for nightlife. Depending on your interest, Greensboro may not be your cup of tea because it has very limited options for nightlife and entertainment compared to larger cities. Now, I've lived in DC and LA, and those cities are huge cities and very diverse cities. No matter what I wanted to get into, I can pretty much find it any day of the week. Greensboro, that's not the case. Sometimes if you want to partake in a certain event, you might have to drive an hour and a half. You might have to go to Raleigh or you might have to go to Charlotte. Now that we got the drawbacks or cons out of the way, let me share with you what I believe are the pros for living in Greensboro, North Carolina. And bear with me because I'm going to share with you my first pro, and I understand it may not be everyone's, but this is my video. And the first pro for me for living in Greensboro, North Carolina are the cultural attractions and the historical relevance of Greensboro, North Carolina. Greensboro has a thriving arts and culture scene with a number of museums, galleries, and performance venues. And here's a list of a few cultural attractions to consider if you're moving to or visiting Greensboro, North Carolina. Greensboro Children's Museum. Now, that is an interactive museum designed for children and families, with exhibits focused on science, technology, engineering, and math. There's also the Greensboro Science Center. Now, I really enjoyed the Greensboro Science Center. It has a hands-on aquarium, a planetarium, and a wildlife park right in the Greensboro Science Center. There's also the Witherspoon Art Museum. Now, this museum is home to a collection of modern and contemporary art, which include works from Georgia O'Keeffe and Jasper Johns. Now, for me, the most culturally relevant museum in Greensboro, North Carolina is the International Civil Rights Center and Museum. Now, this museum is dedicated to preserving and interpreting the history of the civil rights movement with the focus on the Greensboro sit-ins of the 1960s. Now, the 3 or 4 museums that I mentioned are just a few examples of the cultural attractions available right in Greensboro, North Carolina. There are many other museums, galleries, and performance venues to explore while you're in the city, and I encourage you to do so. The next pro to Greensboro, North Carolina is the affordable cost of living. Greensboro has a relatively low cost of living compared to other middle and major cities in the U.S. This can be an attractive place for those looking to save money on housing, food, and other expenses. I like Greensboro because as an investor, you can still get into the city as far as buying an investment property at 2/3 or a third of the cost of what it would be to invest in Charlotte, North Carolina, or other larger cities such as Raleigh and Atlanta. And if you're not a subscriber to this channel, I encourage you to do so and hit that bell icon because I commonly say, I think Greensboro and the Triad area is woefully underpriced. There is a huge value by owning property in that area. So if you're looking to buy a home to live in or an investor, I encourage you to look in that area because the cost of living and the cost of a home is drastically less. Now, North Carolina is generally a lower cost of living than the national average. And according to the website Numbeo, a website that tracks the cost of living data, the overall cost of living in Greensboro is 18% lower than the national average. Here's a breakdown of some of the specific costs in Greensboro, North Carolina, according to that website. Housing cost in Greensboro is about 14% less than the national average. That includes, as I mentioned before, both renting and buying a home. Groceries in Greensboro is about 6% lower than the national average. And utilities, your lights, your electricity, your gas, is about 6% less than the national average. And I mentioned if you live in Greensboro, one of the cons is the lack of public transportation. But the cost of transportation in Greensboro is about 7% lower than the national average. So if you have to maintain a car or getting gas, it is cheaper to do so than if you lived in other parts of the country. Another pro that attracts a lot of people to Greensboro, North Carolina is its outdoor recreation. Greensboro is located in the Triad in the Piedmont region of North Carolina, which means you have access to a number of parks and trails. These parks include the Hogan Stone Park, the Burr Mill Park, and the Tanger Family Bicentennial Garden. Now, I'm not going to front. I have never been to any one of those parks, but I hear it's a good time. I suffer from allergies, and the thought of walking around and flaring up my allergies just doesn't sit well with me. The next pro for Greensboro, North Carolina is its strong economy. And Greensboro, for the size of the city, it has a very diverse economy with a number of major employers. Healthcare, education, and manufacturing are some of the major industries in Greensboro. And you can often find good employments and careers in one of those fields. When talking about healthcare, Greensboro has a number of hospitals and healthcare facilities, including the Moses Cone Hospital and the VA Medical Center. And those employ a large number of people in the healthcare industry. In education, Greensboro is home to a number of colleges and universities, including University of North Carolina at Greensboro, North Carolina A&T State University, and Guilford College. When talking about the economy of Greensboro, I have to talk about manufacturing because Greensboro has a long and strong history of manufacturing, with major companies such as Honda Jet, Volvo Trucks, and Procter & Gamble, to name a few. And like most mid to larger cities, retail is also a major driver of the economy, and Greensboro has several shopping centers and retail outlets that also employ a lot of people. Overall, Greensboro has a very strong and diverse economy for the size of the city. But if you're comparing it to one of the nation's larger cities, your New Yorks, your Washington, D.C.s, your L.A.s, your Atlantas, yes, Greensboro may be lacking. But compared to other smaller cities, Greensboro is top-notch for job diversity and a strong economy. Now, this is a pro that I get from a lot of people moving to the area. And they say they moved to Greensboro because of where it's centrally located, not just in the state of North Carolina, but in the country. Greensboro allows you to have easy access to major cities throughout North Carolina, such as Raleigh and Charlotte. Both of those are about an hour and a half to at most 2 hours away, depending on where at in those cities you want to get to. And Greensboro is not far from Virginia, South Carolina, and not even far from Atlanta once you think about it. So, if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in Greensboro, North Carolina, and want to make the move, don't hesitate. Feel free to reach out to my team and I. We are here to help. I hope this video was helpful, giving you what I believe are the cons, because I gave you the cons first, and pros of living right in Greensboro, North Carolina. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'm Sir Ashley. Talk soon. Talk to me honestly. Look in my eyes. Don't let it fall.